Three desperate souls relentlessly pursue a millionaire, pleading for salvation. What unfolds next will leave you breathless. Share your location in the comments before we dive in. Your support is everything to us. The fading sun stretched shadows over the dusty road, slicing through Jackson Miller's sprawling Nebraska fields. At 45, Jackson possessed all that wealth could offer: a vast ranch, thriving enterprises, and deep respect across the county. His weathered face seldom smiled now, not since Sarah was taken from him 5 years ago. Jackson tightened his grip on the frayed brim of his cowboy hat, glancing anxiously at his watch. The meeting with investors stretched on, but it ended on a high note, a new deal sealed. Yet his fortune felt emptier than ever, echoing in the silence of solitude. The blue pickup truck thundered down the well-known road, sending golden dust swirling behind it. The radio hummed a country tune about family and belonging, but Jackson couldn't bear it. He reached over and switched it off. The silence that lingered wrapped around them, a comforting embrace of familiarity. As he turned the corner by the eastern edge of his land, a flicker in the rearview mirror seized his gaze. 3 shadowy figures emerged on the road behind him, trailing his truck with an unsettling persistence. Initially, he believed his weary eyes were deceiving him. Who would dare to walk these miles alone? Is it from the closest neighbor? What on earth? He whispered, bringing the vehicle to a halt. Amidst the swirling dust, he beheld 3 identical little girls pressing on with unwavering resolve. They were barely 3, with tousled dirty blonde hair and faded, tattered dresses, smudged faces, tiny shoes heavy with mud. Even in their fatigue, they pressed on, driven by a fierce determination. Tracing the path of his truck, Jackson emerged from his vehicle, confusion etched on his face. "Hey there," he whispered, lowering himself to seem less threatening. "Are you lost, or am I?" 3 little girls froze, their wide, weary eyes locked onto him. She held the tattered doll tightly, as if it were her lifeline, her heart laid bare in that fragile embrace. Silence enveloped them, yet their eyes pierced through, a blend of hope and fear igniting a long-buried ache in Jackson's heart. "What brought you here?" He glanced around, searching for any trace of grown-ups. The barren farmland lay desolate, an endless void of solitude. Silence reigns. Fields of wheat stretch endlessly, shimmering under the fading sun, a haunting beauty and solitude. The girl with the doll stepped forward, heart racing. Her small hands shook as she offered the worn toy for his gaze. Jackson's gaze caught an oddity: a tiny slip of paper meticulously stitched to the doll's worn dress. "What is this?" he whispered, his fingers brushing the note, careful not to disturb the doll. He opened the paper, and a frantic scrawl emerged. A plea for help. Desperation. "Please. Mrs. Martha is gravely ill. Empty stomach, aching body. Thompson cabin stands alone." Jackson's heart plummeted. He stood at the edge of his property, the old Thompson cabin looming in his mind, a forgotten relic he had long intended to destroy. 3 identical faces loomed before him, their solemn gazes heavy with expectation. In that moment, Jackson chose a path that would alter his life irrevocably. "Come on," he urged softly, swinging open the truck's door. "We must assist Mrs. Martha." As he lifted the triplets into his truck, an unsettling realization gripped him. These 3 small girls, emerging from the shadows of his desolate road, were not merely lost. They were harbingers of a fate he had never dared to envision. The truck jolted down the wild path to the forgotten Thompson cabin. Jackson caught a glimpse in the rearview mirror. 3 identical faces, hauntingly silent, locked in a shared gaze. Their eyes revealed a haunting depth, unsettling for such tender souls. "So close," he whispered. "It's just to break the silence. Loru." The cabin loomed ahead, a crumbling relic nearly consumed by the encroaching pines. The weathered wooden boards creaked, the small porch teetering on the edge of collapse. A fragile wisp of smoke curled from the crooked chimney, the sole whisper of existence. Jackson assisted the girls from the truck, observing their tight-knit formation, a single entity in motion. The one with the doll pointed urgently at the cabin door, a desperate need to learn their names looming over him. Jackson's voice pierced the silence. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence lingered as he slowly pushed the door open. The scene inside hit him hard, leaving him breathless. The room, though bare, gleamed with an unsettling purity amidst its stark desolation. Amidst the mismatched furniture, a small wood stove flickered, but it was the frail elderly woman on the worn cot that captured Jackson's gaze. She lay barely aware, her frail chest heaving with each strained breath. "Mrs. Martha?" Jackson dashed to her, eyes locked on her flushed face and the glistening sweat on her brow. "I'm Jackson Miller. The girls discovered me." The woman's eyes flickered open, clouded by fever's grip. "The triplets," she breathed, voice trembling. "Relief washes over me. They finally found help." A girl stepped forward, a damp cloth in hand, pressing it gently to Martha's forehead with an unsettling precision that belied her age. "Sir," Martha rasped. "They're good girls, Abigail, Charlotte, and Grace." She gestured feebly, her finger trembling as it traced each one. "I've been looking after them ever since my niece walked away. Claimed it would be brief, yet here we are, months later." A harsh cough shattered her speech. As the storm calmed, she pressed on. "Darkness reigns. Creek water flows, whispering secrets of the earth. Tuesday marked the end of our food supply." Jackson scanned the room, taking in the barren cupboards, the dwindling candle stubs, and the pile of well-worn, lovingly repaired children's clothes. "You need a hospital," he insisted, his voice unwavering. "You all are in desperate need of help." Martha grasped his sleeve with trembling fingers. "They must stay together. Promise me that." They shielded one another fiercely. The triplets stood united at the foot of the cot, hands clasped, a silent testament to their bond. Abigail stands at the center, a born leader, clutching her doll tightly against her side. Charlotte clung to her, eyes filled with fear, while Grace watched intently, her gaze sharp enough to cut through Jackson's facade. "I've got this," Jackson vowed, his fingers already dancing over his phone. "Everyone here is in desperate need of medical care and nourishment. We'll handle the rest when the time comes." While calling for an ambulance, Jackson's gaze lingered on the triplets as they clutched their meager possessions: a doll, a worn book, and 3 delicate bracelets. Everything they owned, yet it felt like so much more. They moved in perfect sync, like children who had discovered that adults were often unreliable. The sunset bathed the cabin in gold, transforming its desperation into a fleeting fairy tale. Jackson Miller, numb for 5 years, was suddenly engulfed by an unexpected, fierce protectiveness that took him by surprise. Help can come from the most surprising places, he realized. 3 identical little girls, hands clasped, stand together in the dimming glow. In the end, the ones you think need rescue become your saviors. The sterile scent of the hospital corridor made Jackson grimace as he paced anxiously outside Martha's room. The frail woman fought against pneumonia and dehydration, while the triplets were hurried off for urgent care and nourishment. A door creaked open, revealing a woman in her mid-30s, her presence electric. Her sensible shoes and professional attire identified her instantly as Rebecca Thompson, the social worker he'd met earlier. "Mr. Miller," she said, her hand reaching out, a spark of tension in the air. "Thank you for bringing them in. Most would have turned away, leaving it to others to handle." Jackson's shoulders tensed, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "How are they holding up?" "They are weak, yet somehow resilient, heartfelt." She paused, heart racing. "It's deeper than it seems." Rebecca guided him into a cramped observation room. He watched through the one-way glass as the 3 little girls clung together on a single chair, despite the identical ones waiting empty around them. Abigail huddled close, her arms a fierce shield around her sisters. She held the doll tightly in her tiny hand. "We're in a tough spot," Rebecca said, her voice heavy with concern. "A dire lack of foster placements looms large. Every home in 3 counties has been reached." Jackson's brow furrowed. "What does it signify for them?" Rebecca let out a heavy breath. "They might need to be apart for a while. A home awaits, ready to embrace one soul, child, then another. Just like that." "Absolutely not." The word slipped from Jackson's lips, unbidden and raw. "They are inseparable." Charlotte's tears fell silently, echoing his words in the stillness of the room. Her sisters formed a protective circle, their whispers a soothing balm against the storm. "Mr. Miller, I hear your worry, but I'll take them," Jackson blurted, shocking both himself and Rebecca. "What did you say?" For a moment he clarified, questioning what had driven him. "Until you discover a place that can embrace all 3. My ranch sprawls with endless space." Rebecca's gaze pierced through him. "That's unexpected. So you've never worked with kids, right?" "I have resources," Jackson shot back. "Help can be hired. Keeping them together is the only choice. Behind the glass, Grace, the silent triplet, stared into the mirror, her solemn eyes piercing through, silently demanding accountability from Jackson for his words. Rebecca's pen drummed against her clipboard, each tap echoing her rising tension. A background check and home evaluation are essential. Do it, Jackson commanded, his voice unwavering. Now, if you can. Hours later, amidst a whirlwind of calls and urgent paperwork, Jackson signed the temporary guardianship papers, his heart racing with the weight of the moment. "This is highly irregular," Rebecca warned, her voice tight with urgency. "But given the circumstances and your resources, it's the best immediate option for the girls." With a swift stroke of the pen, Jackson sealed his fate and dialed Walter, his steadfast friend and ranch manager. "Walter, prepare the guest room. Our visitors are arriving soon. Business associates," Walter inquired, his voice laced with tension. "No," Jackson replied, his gaze fixed on the triplets as a nurse gently dressed them in fresh clothes. "3 little girls." The silence echoed, heavy with unspoken truths. "It's temporary," Jackson said, but a nagging doubt stirred within him, whispering that it might not be. As he hung up, Jackson felt a surge of confusion and regret. 5 years of isolation shattered in an instant, as 3 quiet little girls slipped through his defenses. In the observation room, Abigail leaned in to whisper to her sisters. Their identical faces turned toward the mirror, a flicker of guarded hope igniting in Jackson's chest, twisting it with unexpected intensity. The looming Miller Ranch emerged as Jackson's truck crested the last rise of the winding driveway. The main house loomed, a striking fusion of wood, stone, and glass, defiant against the Nebraska sky, encircled by pristine grounds that melted into endless pastures and golden wheat fields. In the rearview mirror, Jackson saw the triplets' identical faces glued to the glass, eyes wide, caught between awe and fear. The 3-hour drive from the hospital unfolded in heavy silence, the girls offering only cautious nods or terse replies to his attempts at conversation. "Here we are," Jackson declared, parking close to the entrance. "This is where my heart beats." Home lingered heavy and unsettling. For 5 years, this stunning property was just a backdrop for Jackson's restless nights and relentless toil. With 3 small children gazing at him, he felt the weight of emptiness in the word. Walter stepped into the grand entrance, his calm facade cracking just enough to reveal the storm within. At 65, he had been part of the Miller family for as long as anyone could remember. Jackson was born, evolving from a ranch hand into a trusted manager and a loyal friend. His heart raced as he beheld the 3 identical little girls cautiously emerging from the truck. "Rooms are ready, just as you asked." Jackson lowered the girls, observing their instinctive huddle, a protective triangle. Abigail stood slightly ahead, Charlotte tucked behind her sisters, while Grace absorbed it all. Eyes that see everything. "This is Walter," Jackson said, his voice heavy with unspoken weight. "He stands by my side, guiding me through the challenges of the ranch. He's more than a friend." The girls eyed Walter, their suspicion heavy in the air. Abigail, her ragdoll held tight, nodded slightly, a silent agreement that echoed for all 3. The grand foyer loomed, its towering ceiling and a majestic staircase swallowing the small visitors whole. They huddled by the door, ready to flee at a moment's notice. "Do you feel that gnawing emptiness inside?" Jackson pleaded, struggling to recall what children craved. The kitchen holds a feast. The mention of food sparked a powerful reaction. 3 swift nods, a fleeting release of tight shoulders. In the kitchen, Mrs. Hoffman, who visited twice a week to clean and restock the fridge, had left a pot of beef stew simmering, its rich aroma filling the air. Simmering quietly. The rich aroma enveloped the kitchen, yet the girls stood frozen, shadows in the doorway. "Please, sit," Jackson urged, motioning to the chairs at the large table. With a heartbeat of uncertainty, the triplets scrambled onto one chair, united and unyielding. Jackson locked eyes with Walter, who offered a subtle shrug before dishing out 3 tiny bowls of stew. The girls ate with unexpected grace for their age, yet Jackson caught the glint of mischief as each one discreetly tucked a piece of bread into her pocket, believing they were unseen. After dinner, Walter took them upstairs to the guest wing, where 3 adjacent rooms awaited, Each held a child-sized bed, hastily bought that very afternoon and delivered by helicopter to the isolated ranch. "This is your room, Abigail," Walter said, opening the door to unveil a vast bedroom, sunlight spilling in from the window that framed the distant pastures. "Charlotte, you're right next door. Grace, you're so close, just a heartbeat away." It hit hard and shattered hearts instantly. Charlotte's eyes brimmed with tears. Grace clutched Abigail's hand tightly as they all retreated from the separate rooms, hearts racing. Hearts racing. "No," Abigail said, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. United, Jackson dropped to his knees, meeting their gaze. "Your own unique sanctuary awaits. Isn't that lovely?" Their faces twisted in fear, revealing the truth he dreaded. Charlotte shook, tears cascading down her cheeks. "Together," Abigail insisted, her small voice cutting through the air with unwavering resolve. "Just this once." That night, despite the 3 inviting beds in 3 lovely rooms, Jackson discovered the triplets curled up on the floor of Abigail's room, pressed against the door, their meager belongings arranged neatly beside them, as if poised for a hasty escape. The seam pierced his soul. In the doorway, Jackson watched the 3 small figures bathed in moonlight, a chilling realization washing over him. He was utterly unprepared. In one day, his structured, lonely life shattered, all because of 3 little girls, each bearing unseen scars. He draped the blanket gently. A whisper of movement. Grace's eyes flickered open. Just for a moment, her gaze pierced through him, assessing his essence. Then she shut her eyes once more, drawing nearer to her sister. Jackson Miller, a man who thrived on bold choices, lingered in the doorway, gripped by the weight of the hasty commitment he had embraced. These were souls seeking refuge. 3 small survivors, each with a past he couldn't grasp and needs that weighed heavily on his heart. Dawn shattered the silence at the Miller Ranch, the sky ablaze with fierce strokes of pink and gold. Jackson, on his 3rd cup of coffee, peered through the kitchen window, heart racing as his unexpected guests ventured into the backyard, their curiosity tinged with uncertainty. After a week of trying, the triplets remained inseparable, always within arm's reach, a single entity bound by an unbreakable bond. Every morning he discovered them in the same spot, curled up on the floor by the door, their meager belongings gathered close, poised for a swift escape. "They're survivors," Elizabeth Jenkins, the retired kindergarten teacher Jackson had brought in for help, declared. A silver-haired gentlewoman in her 60s, with kind eyes, arrived carrying a bag of children's books and an abundance of patience. What had instilled such fear in them? Jackson pondered, his voice barely above a whisper. Elizabeth's head trembled in denial. At such a tender age, they shouldn't have to tread so lightly. They scan every exit, hoard their food, and guard one another fiercely. Clear indicators of abandonment. A tiny border collie puppy raced across the lawn, joyfully heading for the girls. Jackson's muscles coiled, poised to act, yet the triplets stood their ground, defying his expectations. The puppy, just 3 months old, approached with a wagging tail. After a brief pause, Charlotte reached out with a trembling hand. "That's Ranger," Elizabeth revealed. "Walter returned from town yesterday, insisting that every ranch deserves a loyal dog." For the first time since their arrival, Jackson witnessed the girls' smiles, 3 identical expressions of pure wonder, as the puppy licked Charlotte's fingers and tumbled playfully at their feet. In the days that followed, Ranger was always there, curled up at the foot of their makeshift bed, a loyal shadow, the puppy bridging every silence. The triplets ventured into the unknown, hearts racing with anticipation. Jackson watched as their unique personalities burst forth. Abigail, the fierce guardian, stands resolute between her sisters and every looming danger. Charlotte, a whirlwind of feelings, always the first to laugh or weep. Grace, ever watchful and sharp, absorbed everything with her piercing gaze, wise beyond her years. Their flaws and wounds surfaced in devastating moments. At the table, they all stashed food in their pockets, ignoring Jackson's desperate promises of abundance. They flinched at every sudden movement. Bath time felt like a battle. Fear gripped them at the sight of the large tub, hinting at a past Jackson dared not envision. One morning, he caught them slipping ranger scraps of their secret stash beneath the kitchen table. Jackson crouched down, eyes locked on theirs. "Ranger has plenty of food," he said softly, reassuringly. "Keep it to yourself." 3 identical faces stared at him, doubt etched in their expressions. "Will you?" Abigail inquired, her voice barely above a whisper. Yet resolute. "I promise," Jackson replied, feeling the weight of her gaze for the first time. A fragile leap into trust. That evening, as the business call dragged on, Jackson returned to the main house. There, he found Elizabeth, lost in a story, surrounded by 3 wide-eyed children and a puppy, all nestled together in a cozy blanket fort on the living room floor. "They refuse to go upstairs without you," Elizabeth whispered as he stepped inside. They hesitated. Jackson's chest constricted as 3 identical pairs of eyes bore into him, measuring his every response. Not afraid, but wary, holding their breath for his reaction to the blanket fort, dreading the possibility of being sent upstairs to the rooms that still haunted them. He dropped to the floor beside them. "What's the tale behind it?" Grace, usually silent, stunned him by gesturing toward a picture of stars in the book. "Stars," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper, yet it pierced the silence. That night, as he gently wrapped a blanket around the 3 small figures huddled on the floor, Jackson felt a stirring within him, a deepening concern for their fate that transcended mere duty. Dark clouds loomed over the Miller ranch, heralding the ominous rumble of thunder. Jackson sat in his office, contracts scattered around him, when he caught sight of the first heavy raindrops splattering against the window. A storm approached, dark and menacing. "A massive storm is brewing," the forecast warns. He couldn't shake the image of the triplets from his mind. In just 2 weeks, he saw how they flinched at every sudden sound. A storm like this could shatter their very souls. Just as his worry peaked, Elizabeth stood at his door. "The girls tremble at the thunder," she whispered. "They cower beneath the dining room table, refusing to emerge." Jackson discovered them, trembling and close, hidden beneath the great oak table. Ranger clung tightly, a shield of fierce devotion. Charlotte wept quietly, her face pressed against Abigail's shoulder. Even Grace, typically so composed, shook with fear, her tiny frame quaking at every thunderclap. Jackson was 5, trembling in the closet as storms raged outside, his father's laughter echoing, cruel and mocking. His mother crept in, flashlight in hand, weaving tales to shield him from the storm's roar. "Hey there," he whispered, kneeling to meet their gaze. "Storms once terrified me, just like they do you now." 3 identical pairs of eyes stared at him, shock etched in their gaze. "You were?" Charlotte's voice trembled, choked by tears. "It truly was," Jackson confessed, curious about what saved me. The girls nodded, a flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. In just 20 minutes, the formal living room morphed into a snug haven, blankets draped from sofa to chairs, a warm glow from battery-powered lanterns casting an inviting light. Jackson sat among the triplets and Ranger, a star map laid out before them, tension crackling in the air. In my fear, my mom spun tales of the stars, her finger tracing constellations on the map. She whispered that everyone held a tale, and if I uncovered them all, solitude would never touch me. A deafening crack of thunder rattled the windows. Charlotte gasped, her hand shooting out, not towards her sisters, but to Jackson. Her small hand gripped his, eyes filled with fear yet glimmering with a delicate trust. Jackson clasped her hand, weaving tales of stars as her breaths calmed. A shift occurred, subtle yet deeply impactful, altering the fragile bond between them. The storm howled outside, but within their fragile fortress, Jackson guided the girls in counting the seconds between lightning and thunder, revealing the distance of the tempest. As bedtime approached, they counted together, Charlotte gripping his hand tightly whenever the thunder roared. For the first time since they arrived, the triplets chose not to sleep on the floor by the door. They drifted into sleep within the blanket fort. Ranger nestled protectively at their feet. Jackson lingered in the armchair, clinging to the fragile trust that hung in the air. Morning dawned with bright skies and an unexpected twist. While Jackson cooked, Grace crept up, her hand outstretched with a folded note. A crayon drawing lay within, 4 stick figures huddled beneath a roof, a small brown blob, perhaps Ranger, hovering nearby. "Is this really us?" Jackson inquired softly. Grace nodded, her face a mask of seriousness, yet a glimmer of hope sparked in her eyes. Later that day, Martha returned from the hospital, her strength renewed for a brief visit. The elderly woman cried as the girls enveloped her in a warm embrace, their joy palpable. "You've truly cared for them," she whispered to Jackson. They appeared brighter, less fearful, as Martha recounted tales of the triplets' mother, her niece who had sought work and vanished without a trace. Jackson observed the girls with Ranger in the yard, their movements unrestrained, laughter and whispers weaving through the air. The blanket fort lingered in his living room, a fragile start, a bond, a small bridge over the deep void of trust that still separated them. 1 month at the Miller Ranch, and the triplets found their rhythm, each routine a testament to their deepening sense of belonging. They had stopped sleeping huddled by the door, yet they clung to the need to share a room. Ranger was their unwavering guardian, barking fiercely to alert Jackson whenever the girls felt distressed. One morning, Jackson felt a surge of urgency. The girls were in desperate need of clothes and supplies. Their meager belongings were frayed, and they deserved so much more than the rushed essentials he had bought. "We're going to town today," he declared at breakfast, "to get you some new things." The news struck with a jolt of fear. 3 identical faces stared from their cereal bowls, emotions flickering between curiosity and stark terror. "Will we return?" Abigail's voice trembled as she instinctively grasped her sister's hand. The question hit Jackson hard, leaving him breathless. He promised them without a doubt. "This is your sanctuary, a refuge for however long you require." Their first trip to Willow Creek, just 30 miles from the ranch, started with hope. The girls huddled in the back seat, fingers darting, excitement bubbling as they spotted horses and cows racing by. Jackson's heart raced with pride as Charlotte burst into laughter at the sight of a family of rabbits crossing the road. That Tuesday morning, the main street lay still, a few locals moving like shadows through the silence. All eyes were on Jackson Miller, the local recluse, as he stepped from his truck, 3 identical little girls in tow, stirring whispers of intrigue and sorrow since his wife's passing. At Henderson's Clothing, the elderly proprietor doted on the triplets, guiding them through sturdy jeans, vibrant shirts, and the perfect boots. Grace, typically composed, felt a spark of awe at the purple sneakers that glowed with each step she took. It all started at the tiny toy store next door, where chaos erupted. While Jackson guided the girls in choosing stuffed animals to accompany Abigail's tattered doll, a group of older children burst in with their mother. "Look, it's the strange triplets." A boy, around 8, whispered sharply, his finger jabbing in their direction. "My mom says they were left behind, unwanted and alone. Why do they mirror each other so perfectly?" "It's creepy," his sister added, her gaze fixed intently. Charlotte's eyes brimmed with tears in an instant. Grace stood still, her face a mask, yet her body trembled with unspoken fear. Abigail shielded her sisters, a fierce determination in her eyes. Fists tightened, small hands trembling. "That's quite enough," Jackson declared, stepping in front of the triplets, a shield against the chaos. "I'm sorry, please forgive me." The mother, flushed with shame, pressed her children to say sorry, but the hurt lingered. The enchanted day lay in ruins. The triplets fell silent, the weight of unspoken words heavy in the air. Joy flickered briefly, then faded into the tense caution of their early days at the ranch. As Jackson drove home, he caught sight of them in the rearview mirror, 3 identical faces, lost in thought, gazing out into the world beyond. Stuffed animals held close, yet their faces remained blank and far away. That night, as Jackson tucked away the final pieces of their new clothes, he caught the soft whispers of Abigail and her sisters in their shared bedroom. "It doesn't matter what they say," she whispered, her voice trembling with intensity. "We're all we need. That belongs to me forever. We are unbreakable. I swear it." Her young voice, filled with fierce resolve, echoed promises no child should ever have to make, shattering something deep within Jackson's heart. He pressed against the hallway wall, struck by an unexpected revelation. Offering shelter and food fell short. These children craved more than just safety. They craved connection, understanding, a place to call their own. He had shut himself away from emotions for 5 long years, and now he questioned if he could ever open up to them again. As Abigail vowed fiercely to her sisters, Jackson felt a deep, unspoken vow stir within him. He would fight. He would fight for them. The morning after their grueling trip to town, Jackson stood at his office window, eyes fixed on the triplets playing in the backyard. Today, they sat apart, each ensnared in her own turbulent thoughts, a stark contrast to their usual closeness. Ranger's playful efforts fell flat, met with only faint echoes of interest. Jackson's phone blared to life. Rebecca Thompson, assessing their journey. They're fit, he said, but broken inside. Yesterday shattered me. Rebecca sighed, the weight of the town's incident heavy on her heart. Children can wound deeply, unaware of their impact. For kids like the triplets, who already feel out of place, these encounters can tear open old scars. What should I do? Jackson asked, his heart racing at the weight of his own concern. Offer them something that ignites confidence and forges bonds, Rebecca urged. A spark that ignites their sense of worth and power. After the call ended, Jackson's gaze returned to the girls, their eyes locked on the ranch hands guiding the horses to the stable. A spark ignited. That afternoon, he guided the triplets to the small corral, home to the kindest horses. Charlotte clung to Abigail, desperation in her grip, as Grace watched with a piercing, calculating stare. "This is Starlight," Jackson said, gently caressing the nose of the dapple gray mare, a moment of quiet connection hanging in the air. Her gift lies in guiding the inexperienced with unmatched skill. "Are you ready to meet her?" Abigail, the unwavering shield, moved ahead without hesitation. "Oh, fuck you, whoa." Under Jackson's watchful eye, she extended her hand to the horse, a soft gasp escaping her lips as Starlight's velvety muzzle brushed against her palm. Who will it be? To his shock, Grace drew near, each step measured and cautious. The quiet child, uncharacteristically bold, mirrored her sister's every move with chilling precision. Charlotte lingered, her eyes filled with fear. "She's enormous," she breathed. Yet tenderly, Jackson knelt beside Charlotte, offering her reassurance. Even the mightiest can cradle with tenderness. Ready to take the plunge? After moments of quiet persuasion, Charlotte's hand trembled as it reached out. As Starlight gently took the apple slice, the little girl's expression ignited with pure awe. In the days that followed, Jackson found his rhythm. Every morning after breakfast, they rushed to the stables. He showed them how to groom the horses with tiny brushes, to identify various feeds, and to read the animal's body language. "Horses are like people," he said, his voice steady as he helped Grace measure the oats that morning. "Each one is a world apart. Starlight waits, gentle and warm. Thunder over there dances with energy and mischief." Abigail watched, caught off guard. "Just like us. I am Thunder. Charlotte shines like a fleeting spark in the night." "And Grace?" Jackson inquired. "Doris, J.D." Abigail realized Grace mirrored Shadow, the watchful black mare in the corner stall, her gaze piercing and knowing. She perceives it all. It was the deepest revelation any of the girls had offered, and Jackson held it close, cherishing it like a precious gift. Charlotte, once paralyzed by fear, forged an unanticipated connection with Starlight. The mare, sensing Charlotte's unease, stood still, lowering her head, a silent offer of comfort in the tension-filled air. Jackson transformed his workshop, crafting 3 vibrant sets of child-sized tools. Blue for Abigail, purple for Grace, pink for Charlotte. He guided them through essential chores, filling water troughs, measuring feed, and gathering eggs from the coop. "You're my official ranch hands now," he declared, handing each a tiny straw hat, just like the ones worn by his grown workers. Their identical faces radiated pride, a sight that caught Jackson off guard. These children, having faced instability, blossomed when entrusted with manageable responsibilities, tasks that ignited their sense of worth and ability. On a warm afternoon, after finishing their chores, Jackson packed a picnic and led them to the small creek on his property. In the cool embrace of willow trees, he revealed the art of crafting tiny boats from leaves and twigs. "My father showed me this at your age," demonstrating how to bind a leaf to a twig with a blade of grass. We raced to see whose boat could soar the farthest. 3 pairs of small hands toiled, crafting tiny vessels, each one a fragile testament to their effort. As Charlotte's boat flipped, her heart sank, disappointment etched on her face. "Let's mend this," Jackson urged, bracing for the flood of emotions. Charlotte nodded, her resolve firm, eyes locked on him as he demonstrated once more. Her second attempt drifted, unsteady yet determined, trailing her sister's boats down the soft current. Her expression of triumph eclipsed any deal Jackson had ever sealed. As dusk fell, the triplets darted after fireflies by the creek. Their laughter, a fleeting sound, made Jackson stop, resonating across the water. Grace, usually so quiet, gasped in joy as she trapped a firefly in her hands, its soft light casting a warm glow on her delicate features. "Jack," she cried, "I caught a star." It was the first time she spoke his name, and it hung in the air, electric. This quiet child, in a simple moment, shared her joy with him, and it felt monumental. As Jackson guided her to release the firefly, their eyes locked, igniting a fleeting moment of pure magic. As twilight draped the landscape in soft purples and blues, Charlotte's small hand found its way into Jackson's. The gesture, seemingly simple for others, marked a deep leap of trust from this fragile little girl. Jackson Miller, a titan of industry, stood stripped of his defenses, overwhelmed by the profound gift of laughter, trust, and a fleeting glimpse of joy offered by 3 small children. 5 months had slipped by since 3 small silhouettes emerged on Jackson's dusty road. The Miller ranch changed quietly, yet its impact was deep. Once silent rooms now whispered secrets of childhood laughter. Vivid drawings clung to refrigerator doors, tiny boots cluttered the entryway, and toys invaded corners that were once immaculate. The transformations in the triplets were astonishing. They had left the floor behind, yet chose to share rooms still. Their faces had transformed, shedding the pinched look of hungry children. They started to explore their own passions, yet their connection remained unbreakable. On a brisk autumn morning, Jackson was lost in quarterly reports when a gentle knock shattered his focus. "Come in," he called, anticipation tightening in his chest for Walter or Elizabeth. Abigail lingered in the doorway, her sisters at her side as always. "Mr. Jack," she started, her voice steady yet charged. "We crave to create. Is it okay if we sit here?" Jackson's eyes widened in disbelief. This was the longest sentence Abigail had ever directed at him, and Mr. Jack marked a shift, a small yet powerful step away from the cautious sir they had relied on before. "Of course," he said, pushing aside papers on his sprawling desk. The girls focused on their crayons and paper, lost in their world, while Jackson navigated a tense conference call with investors. He couldn't look away as Abigail sketched fierce mountains and vast skies, each stroke alive with passion. Charlotte crafted vibrant flowers with precision, while Grace captured horses with astonishing skill for her age. As the secretary entered with coffee, Charlotte glanced up and unbidden expressed her gratitude with a clear, heartfelt thank you. What seemed like a simple gesture for most children was a monumental step in the healing journey of this once terrified little girl. That evening at dinner, a pivotal moment unfolded. As Walter carved the roast chicken, Abigail extended her plate, her eyes pleading, "More, please." Silence enveloped the table. For the first time, the triplets reached for seconds, unprompted, their hunger undeniable. "Of course," Walter said, his voice steady, but Jackson saw the storm brewing in his eyes. Walter had changed profoundly in these last months. Once wary of the chaos children might bring to the ranch, he transformed into their fiercest advocate. The stern ranch manager transformed evenings into moments of warmth, teaching the girls to bake cookies while weaving tales of the ranch's past. Rebecca Thompson arrived for her monthly check-in, astonished by the transformation. She watched the triplets gather eggs with Walter, each one distinct, their color-coded baskets reflecting their unique spirits. Still wary, yet deeply connected, they are starting to flourish. Remarkable, Jackson thought, a surge of pride filling his chest unexpectedly. "And what about you?" 5 months ago, his life was a hollow routine, a series of predictable days stretching into nothingness. It was chaos, a whirlwind of the unexpected, brimming with challenges he never saw coming. You never saw coming. His days slipped through his fingers, and his home had lost its former glory. Before he could respond, Grace stepped forward, clutching a drawing, her intricately detailed horse, alive with emotion. She passed it to him silently, her intense gaze fixed on his every response. "Thank you," Jackson said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's breathtaking." Grace nodded, a fleeting smile dancing on her lips before she turned back to her sisters. "I'm better than I've been in years," Jackson confessed to Rebecca, astonished by the honesty of his words. Winter wrapped the Miller Ranch in a fragile calm. Snow enveloped the Nebraska landscape, turning the main house into a genuine sanctuary. Jackson reshaped his business life, carving out moments for morning horse feeding with the triplets and evening story times. The girls, nearing their 4th birthday, had flourished in this nurturing space. On a Tuesday morning, Jackson hunched over the kitchen counter, eyes glued to emails, as the triplets devoured their breakfast. Walter stepped in, the day's mail clutched tightly, his face shadowed by worry. He spoke softly, passing Jackson an envelope marked by the Department of Social Services. Walter's tone gripped Jackson, compelling him to retreat to the study before he dared to open it. A formal notification lay inside, chilling his very core. "Melissa Carter, the biological mother of Abigail, Charlotte, and Grace, has reached out to us, determined to reclaim her children." Jackson read the letter thrice, his hands turning icy. After nearly a year of silence, the girl's mother returned, demanding to reclaim what she had left behind. A court date loomed, the preliminary hearing just 2 weeks away. When Rebecca Thompson arrived that afternoon, her warm smile vanished, replaced by a sharp, piercing concern. "I need to talk about this face to face," she said, her voice steady as they sat in Jackson's office, miles away from little ears. "Oh, last week, Melissa Carter reached out to our department. She insists she's finally turning her life around, ready to support the young women after leaving them for almost a year." Jackson's fury was raw and unmasked. "When I discovered them, they were deprived of food and medical care." Rebecca's head dipped in silent agreement. "Your frustration is clear. The court will weigh every detail, from the duration of abandonment to the girl's present state of being." "Must they confront her before the hearing?" Jackson asked, his heart racing, fearing the response. Rebecca confirmed a supervised visitation to evaluate their bond. "We will set it up here at the ranch, where they find solace." The news clawed at Jackson all week long. He watched the triplets with a fierce urgency, etching every fleeting moment into his memory, moments he once overlooked. Charlotte's laughter erupted like sunlight as Ranger dazzled with his trick. Abigail's focused gaze was unwavering, guiding Walter in measuring feed. Grace's smile, a fleeting gem, shone brightly when she conquered a new skill. He still hadn't revealed the truth. How could he convey that the mother who had left them now sought their return, or that he, who vowed to protect them, might be helpless to stop their departure? The day Melissa Carter came was marked by a piercing cold under a clear sky. Jackson paced, tension crackling in the air while Walter stood guard, shielding the girls from the impending chaos they couldn't yet see. The gravel crunched under tires, heralding her presence. Jackson peered through the window as a woman emerged from a rented car. She was young, maybe in her late 20s, clad in attire far too stylish for the rural Nebraska backdrop. This was the woman who abandoned 3 toddlers with an elderly relative and vanished into thin air. For 11 months, Rebecca always arrived just moments late to oversee the visit. "Stay calm, no matter what," she urged Jackson, her voice steady yet urgent. "The girls will sense your emotions." As Melissa Carter stepped into the living room, tears welled up in her eyes, dramatic and raw. "My babies?" she cried, rushing toward the triplets lost in their puzzle. The girls glanced up, their eyes wide with surprise at the stranger's raw emotion. Charlotte drew near to Abigail, sensing the tremor in Grace's face. "Can't you see, Mommy?" Melissa knelt before them, her designer boots gleaming in the dim light. 3 identical faces stared back, confusion and wariness etched in their expressions. In their eyes, nothing but emptiness. No joy, no warmth, just 3 small figures retreating from the noise of an unfamiliar presence. "It's me, Mommy," Melissa cried, but Charlotte erupted in tears, darting behind Jackson's legs. "Maybe we need to take a step back," Rebecca urged, her voice steady yet filled with urgency. "Nearly a year has passed, and they were just kids when you walked away. Abandon them?" Melissa's voice sharpened, laced with defiance. "I was searching for a job. I will return no matter what." During the tense visit, Jackson watched Melissa intently. Her gaze drifted from the children to the lavish decor of the ranch house, a silent battle within her. She snapped a flurry of photos, seemingly focused on the girls, yet Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that the camera lingered on the room more than the children. Abigail's refusal to sit on her lap shattered Melissa's mask of love, revealing a fleeting glimpse of vulnerability. "I am your mother," she snapped. "You were meant to love me." The visit ended after a tense hour, leaving much unresolved. As Melissa got ready to go, Jackson caught her asking Rebecca about the money and the pain it had caused her. Her tone sent shivers down my spine. This was about confronting the ghosts of the past. This was about something completely different. That night, after soothing the distraught triplets and settling them into bed, Jackson dialed his lawyer. "Gather all you can on Melissa, Carter," he commanded. "Each detail, each connection, each motive pulses with urgency." Each motive pulses with urgency. He hung up. A faint sound at the door pierced the silence. Grace lingered in her pajamas, her keen eyes piercing through the stillness of the night. "Are we leaving?" she asked, her voice a fragile breath. Jackson knelt, his heart shattering at the terror reflected in her eyes. "I'll fight for you to stay," he vowed. Grace's gaze pierced him, revealing the raw truth beneath the surface. With raw intensity, she stepped forward and enveloped him in her embrace. "We want to stay with you," she breathed, her voice trembling against his shoulder. In that instant, Jackson Miller, a man who thrived on control and strategy, was gripped by an overwhelming fear of losing the 3 children who had become his everything. Tension hung thick at the Miller Ranch after Melissa Carter's visit. Jackson wore a bright smile for the triplets, yet his nights were consumed by urgent meetings with lawyers and investigators. Melissa's behavior during the visit ignited his instincts, the very instincts that had forged his fortune by revealing opportunities and threats unseen by others. Rebecca Thompson stepped in early Wednesday, her face a mask of tension as she took the coffee from Walter. "Another supervised visit is set for tomorrow," she told Jackson, her voice tight with unspoken tension. Melissa's urgency is palpable, pushing relentlessly for speed. "Have you sensed something off about her fascination?" Jackson whispered, his voice barely a breath, as the girls laughed and played with Elizabeth in the next room. Rebecca paused, torn between her duty and deep worry. "I shouldn't guess, but her sudden return definitely sparks curiosity. Her fascination with your finances was evident." Jackson nodded, unshaken. "My team has been relentless. I want you to witness their discoveries." He laid out a flurry of documents on the kitchen table. Melissa Carter had vanished for 11 months, not in search of work as she pretended, but drifting through opulent resorts, entwined with a string of affluent lovers. For 3 weeks, she remained silent, never reaching out to Martha or asking about her daughters. Jackson's voice trembled as he pointed to the recent photograph, a wave of worry washing over him. Melissa stood beside an older man, their luxurious attire speaking volumes. Martin Donovan, a corporate attorney, navigates the treacherous waters of inheritance law and high-stakes settlements. Rebecca's eyes filled with shock. Are they in love? For roughly 6 weeks, as my sources indicate. After their meeting, a fierce desire ignited within her to reclaim her children. Jackson's voice turned steel. Children under the guardianship of a solitary man, a figure of immense wealth at around $40 million. "You believe this is just about money?" Rebecca declared, not inquiring. "An opportunity has emerged," Jackson said, his voice steady yet charged. "How do we prove it?" The doorbell chimed, shattering the moment. Walter emerged, his expression shifted, discomfort etched across his face. "Miss Carter has arrived. She insists on seeing the children. Claims she requires no appointment to see her own daughters." Jackson locked eyes with Rebecca. Her subtle nod spoke volumes. "Let's find out." Melissa stormed into the living room, a tempest of luxury scent and raw feeling. For once she had company. A sharply dressed man in a costly suit trailed behind, his presence commanding attention. Martin Donovan, in the flesh. "I can't wait until tomorrow," Melissa declared, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on the triplets, my beloved angels. The girls, once joyfully arranging toy horses with Elizabeth, suddenly froze. Charlotte crouched behind the sofa, heart racing, as Abigail stood fiercely in front of Grace. "Ms. Carter, we agreed on scheduling supervised visits ahead of time," Rebecca insisted, her voice steady yet charged. "I have rights," Melissa shot back, her voice escalating. "Speak, Martin." The attorney swallowed hard. "Ms. Carter, as their biological mother, holds undeniable rights to see her children in this crucial time of change." As the adults clashed over legalities, Jackson caught Martin Donovan's keen gaze sweeping the room, his eyes absorbing every detail, his phone stealthily capturing the moment. Jackson's suspicions were brutally validated. "Enough," he said, his voice low yet commanding, as he stepped closer to the triplets. "The unexpected visit is clearly unsettling the children. Please, leave and honor the visitation schedule set by social services." Melissa's carefully crafted mask shattered. "They will never be out of my reach. What could a judge grant me if I pursued a lawsuit for wrongful separation? Countless." Rebecca's eyes widened as Martin Donovan's hand landed on Melissa's arm, but it was already too late. Melissa retreated in an instant. Separated from their mother, the pain cut deep. Trauma lingered, yet the truth emerged. Jackson observed Martin Donovan's face morph from assured to shrewd, weighing the wreckage his client had inflicted on their plan. A small voice emerged from behind the sofa. Charlotte stepped out, tears cascading down her cheeks. "You left," she whispered, her voice shaking yet resolute. "You abandoned us with Auntie Martha, and you never returned. Darling, I had no choice." Melissa's hand stretched out toward the child, a moment heavy with longing. Charlotte retreated, heart racing. "Jack stays put. Jack feeds us quietly. No shouts, just warmth. Jack shares tales that chase away our fears." The child's words pierced the silence, raw and haunting. Melissa's face turned steely, the facade of motherly care shattering. "This is absurd," she shot back. "They're lost in a whirlwind of uncertainty. They've clearly been swayed against me." Abigail, the unwavering shield, moved ahead. With fierce bravery, she met the gaze of the woman who had left them behind. "You left," she stated, her voice steady, mirroring her sister's sentiment. "Jack belongs to us now." Martin Donovan, feeling the weight of defeat, gripped Melissa's arm tightly. "We must take this conversation to the right channels," he urged, his voice firm. As Walter ushered the unwelcome visitors away, Rebecca faced Jackson, her composed facade slipping away in an instant. "Every detail of this interaction will be in my report," she promised him, "especially Miss Carter's striking remark on financial compensation." Jackson hardly registered her voice. He knelt beside Charlotte, her brave stand crumbling into tears. Grace and Abigail huddled near their sister, their presence a quiet strength. "You were incredibly brave," he whispered to Charlotte, his voice thick with emotion. "You all were." With tears streaming down her face, Charlotte gazed up at him, her trust unwavering, a gaze that solidified Jackson's resolve. These children will not be sacrificed for profit. He would do anything, spare no resource, to keep them safe. The courthouse loomed against the bleak winter sky, its red bricks and white columns a fierce defiance of the gray December chill. Jackson's hands trembled as he straightened his tie, guiding the triplets from the SUV. Today, wealth and success meant nothing. As the judge prepared to decide, his heart raced with fear. 3 little girls hung in the balance of his fate. "Remember what we practiced," Walter urged softly, kneeling to meet the triplets' gaze. "Respond to the kind judge's inquiries with all your heart." The girls nodded, their blue dresses and white cardigans, a stark contrast to the weight of the moment. They had picked their outfits for this pivotal moment. Charlotte gripped her stuffed horse, a lifeline Jackson had offered to ease her racing heart. The courtroom buzzed with the weight of familiar faces, each one a reminder of the stakes at hand. Martha sat in the front row, health restored, yet her face betrayed a deep worry. Rebecca Thompson leaned in, her voice barely a whisper as she exchanged urgent words with Jackson's attorney. Elizabeth Jenkins, the retired teacher, sat among the ranch hands who had taken the day off, their solidarity palpable in the air. Dr. Miller, the local vet, had become a steadfast ally, standing as a character witness for the triplets he had grown close to during his ranch visits. The community's reaction was nothing short of extraordinary. These 3 little girls left an indelible mark on countless lives at the Miller Ranch. Jackson guided the triplets to their seats just as Melissa Carter walked in, accompanied by Martin Donovan and another attorney. Her outfit, conservative and meticulously chosen, radiated an air of maternal responsibility. As she caught sight of the girls, she lunged forward, arms wide open, but Rebecca blocked her path. Rebecca's voice was steady, a warning laced with urgency. Respect the court's guidelines before the hearing. Melissa's sweet smile wavered. I long to hold my little ones close. The triplets, perched beside Jackson, observed the tense exchange with anxious eyes. Abigail's tiny hand grasped Jackson's, clinging fiercely. Judge Eleanor Simmons strode in, a commanding presence in her 60s, her steel gray hair framing piercing eyes that seemed to see through all. As the proceedings commenced, Jackson fought to concentrate on his attorneys, their opening statements battling the knot of fear twisting in his stomach. How could he ever express to this court the depth of his love for these children? In under a year, they evolved from broken souls to the very core of his existence. Melissa's attorney spoke first, crafting a poignant tale of a young mother in distress who made a fleeting, regrettable choice in her quest for employment. He spoke of her incredible transformation and unveiled a heartfelt parenting plan. During her presentation, Melissa fought back tears, her eyes darting to the judges, desperate for their empathy. Jackson's attorney laid bare the 11 months of utter neglect, the harrowing state of the girls when discovered, and their astonishing recovery at the Miller Ranch. Medical records from their first hospital visit revealed alarming malnourishment. Early photos captured their fear and withdrawal, starkly juxtaposed with recent images of 3 vibrant children flourishing. Martha recounted how Melissa's visits dwindled to nothing, vanishing without a trace, ignoring frantic calls as hunger and illness took hold. "It's just temporary," Martha said, her voice unwavering, yet her eyes betrayed a storm of feelings. Only 2 weeks until she secured a job in Omaha. 2 weeks turned into a month, then stretched into 6 months. When I last called her, too weak to rise, she promised to send money. She never did. Not once. Rebecca Thompson's testimony was striking, revealing the triplets' deep bond with Jackson and their complete unawareness of their biological mother. She concluded that tearing these children from their stable environment would shatter their emotional growth, leaving scars that run deep. Judge Simmons called the triplets into her chambers for a private conversation. As they trailed behind the court officer, 3 tiny silhouettes in blue dresses, Jackson sensed his heart leaving the room with them. The next 30 minutes stretched on, each second a torment for Jackson. The judge reappeared with the girls, her face a mask of mystery. Yet Jackson caught a glimpse of Charlotte, more at ease, a faint smile gracing her lips as she settled back into her seat. Judge Simmons peered over her glasses, scanning the courtroom, then began to speak. "Family law thrusts us into tangled dilemmas, where perfect answers are a rare find," she began. "Children's best interests must always come first, no matter what." Her gaze locked onto Melissa. "Miss Carter, biology may forge a bond, but it is the actions that truly shape a parent. Your choice to leave your daughters for 11 months without proper care is abandonment," the judge stated to Jackson. "Mr. Miller, you welcomed 3 shattered souls into your home with no duty to do so. You've given more than just what they need. You've offered them a safe haven and a personal touch that speaks to their hearts." Judge Simmons halted, her glasses slipping from her fingers. "Before I reveal my choice, I must share a powerful moment Grace had with me in chambers." When asked where she felt safest, this quiet child replied, "Jack makes the monsters go away and fixes our food without yelling." The statement lingered, striking in its pure, innocent truth. "The court grants permanent guardianship to Jackson Miller, paving the way for immediate adoption." The gavel fell, sealing their fate. The court is now adjourned. Silence shattered by hushed applause. Martha sobbed, her heart breaking, as Walter gripped Jackson's shoulder tightly. Even Rebecca Thompson couldn't hide her joy as a wide smile broke through her professional facade at the outcome. In the midst of the celebration, Jackson knelt, wrapping his arms around the triplets, their faces a mix of confusion and relief at the adult's joy. "Are we bound to you for eternity?" Abigail inquired, her tiny face etched with gravity. "Yes," Jackson replied, his voice heavy with feeling. "If that's truly your desire, Grace." One silent, reached out, her fingers brushing his cheek, where tears now streamed down. "Home," she whispered, her voice heavy with longing, a word that holds an entire universe within it. As December unfolded, the Miller Ranch shed its practicality, embracing a heartwarming festive glow. For the first time since Sarah's death, Jackson allowed the main house to be fully decorated for the holidays. Twinkling lights framed the vast porch, while a towering 12-foot pine tree loomed in the great room, its presence striking through the picture windows as one drew near. "Higher, Walter," Charlotte urged, her voice a mix of excitement and urgency as the ranch manager delicately positioned a handmade ornament on a high branch. He must seize the light. The ornaments, clay impressions of the girls' tiny handprints, each a vibrant echo of their favorite colors, had consumed Elizabeth's every thought with them. Amidst the store-bought decorations, precious tokens and paper snowflakes, cut with love by tiny, determined hands, hung with a quiet pride. Jackson stood in the doorway, clutching a steaming mug of hot chocolate, his heart racing, fingers intertwined. A silent promise hangs in the air. 5 years of Christmas faded into a haze of meetings and lonely dinners after Sarah's loss. When he had lost the enchantment that children infused into the season, the awe in their eyes at the simplest joys, and the thrill that turned every December day into something extraordinary. Abigail called, her excitement palpable as she beckoned him to witness their creation. Mr. Jack had faded, replaced by the more intimate Jack, marking a pivotal shift in their deepening bond. Christmas Eve unfolded with a gathering that electrified the ranch, a moment etched in time. Martha and her sister stepped off the bus from Omaha, hearts racing with anticipation. Rebecca Thompson arrived, cookies in hand, gifts tucked under her arm. Ranch hands and their families burst into the usually quiet rooms, filling them with laughter and vibrant conversation. Dr. Miller arrived with a surprise: 3 matching cowgirl hats. The triplets wore them proudly, their joy lighting up the evening. As the guests gathered in the great room post-dinner, Martha unveiled an unexpected gift: a meticulously preserved photo album. "I saved these," she whispered, her eyes glistening as the triplets leaned in closer. "I believed they needed a piece of their past." The album held cherished snapshots of the girls as babies and toddlers, moments captured before Jackson's world intertwined with theirs. He observed their responses, anxiety gripping him as he pondered the impact of this link to their history. "Look how tiny we were," Charlotte whispered, her finger tracing the image of 3 identical newborns, swaddled in hospital blankets. "It was our first day," Martha whispered, her voice heavy with meaning. "You arrived ahead of time, yet with fierce resilience. Every page etched a moment in the triplets' story, gifting them what every child deserves: a glimpse into their origins." Jackson watched as they took in these images, curiosity replacing distress, finally free to confront their past without fear. As night fell, the gathering shifted to the dining room for a Christmas Eve feast. Walter surpassed all expectations, crafting a feast that celebrated tradition while embracing the girls' evolving palates. Jackson raised his glass, a quiet moment before the storm. "In our family," he said, "we always express our gratitude before the Christmas meal." He had forsaken the tradition after Sarah's death, feeling no gratitude in those shadowed years. Amidst the warmth of the community, gathered for 3 little girls, gratitude surged within him, a powerful tide of emotion. The guests expressed deep gratitude, from Martha's relief over her health to Walter's joy in the laughter that filled the home once more. As Abigail's moment arrived, she rose on her chair, her face a mask of gravity. She declared her gratitude for Daddy Jack and Ranger, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. Her words hung in the air, a breathless pause before the room erupted in soft applause. For the first time, one of the triplets uttered the word Daddy. Spring burst onto the Miller Ranch, awakening everything with vibrant energy. The pastures glowed with a vibrant emerald hue. Wildflowers blanketed the meadows as the triplets reveled in the thrill of exploration, Ranger racing by their side. The adoption process was in motion, paperwork racing through the system. Jackson lingered on the porch that April morning, contracts in hand, as the girls eagerly assisted Walter in planting a garden nearby. In just 10 months they transformed, physically and emotionally, a journey of profound change. The once fearful, scarred children who huddled on the floor had transformed into bold, inquisitive 4-year-olds, now calling him Daddy Jack with unwavering certainty. The mail delivery shattered his concentration. As Jackson sifted through the envelopes, his heart stopped at the sight of familiar handwriting on a pale blue envelope. Melissa Carter's looping script was hauntingly clear. A 5-page letter lay within, brimming with heartfelt apologies and promises of change. Melissa recounted her therapy sessions and parenting classes, pleading for a chance, convinced she had transformed. The letter held old photographs of the triplets as babies and promises of reclaiming lost time. But it was the final paragraph that laid bare her true intent, a plea to reconsider visitation rights, subtly hinting that such kindness could bring us financial gain for all. Jackson tucked the letter away, heart racing. His mind was a storm. Despite the courts granting him permanent guardianship, he often grappled with the haunting question of what the right moral choice was for the girl's biological mother. Did they have the right to uncover her, even after she left them behind? Would reaching out mend wounds or reopen scars? That afternoon, he led the triplets to their cherished place by the lake. As ducks glided across the water, Jackson hesitated, then plunged into the conversation. "Today I got a letter," he started, "from your birth mother." 3 identical faces stared back, each revealing a different emotion. Abigail's walls, Charlotte's racing heart, and Grace's piercing gaze. She shared baby pictures, and he kept revealing more. "Now, she's wondering if she could visit you occasionally." Jackson braced for fear or confusion. Each girl replied with unexpected clarity, a stark reminder of their remarkable growth. Abigail scrutinized the photos, her gaze cold and distant, as if they were mere strangers. "We've changed," she noted quietly. Charlotte returned the letter, untouched, her eyes vacant. "No thank you," she said, her voice steady, a stark contrast to the uncertainty of months past. It was Grace, the ever-watchful one, who caught him off guard the most. She grasped the letter, scanned it quickly, then locked eyes with Jackson, her gaze piercing and intense. With the pure simplicity of youth, she started folding the letter into a paper boat, a skill Jackson had shared with them long ago. As she completed her task, her gaze sought his approval. Jackson nodded, his heart racing, as he grasped her intention completely. Grace leaned in, her heart racing as she released the paper boat onto the water's surface. They stood mute, the echoes of Melissa's promises and demands fading into the lake, swept away by the spring breeze until they vanished completely. Jackson wrapped his arm around the 3 small figures beside him, a wave of finality enveloping them all. Innocence often holds the deepest truths, revealing a home that resonates with pure clarity. The summer sun bathed the Miller Ranch in golden light, turning the land into a breathtaking scene of country life. 3 6-year-olds dashed through the meadow, their cowgirl boots, blue, purple, pink, kicking up dust as they pursued Ranger, the once puppy border collie, now a spirited companion. Women. 15 minutes to lunch. Minutes later, Jackson stood on the porch of what had become a real family home, 3 years since the courthouse verdict sealed their fate as Millers. On the triplets' 5th birthday, the formal adoption was finalized, a day that united the entire community in a heartfelt celebration. The ranch transformed with its youngest inhabitants, merging profit with a deeper meaning. The eastern part of the property now shelters the Miller Foundation for Children, a nonprofit dedicated to providing therapy and experiences for orphaned and traumatized kids. The triplets, bound by an unbreakable bond yet carving their own paths, emerged as the program's unofficial ambassadors. They blossomed into their own, yet the bond between them remained unbreakable. Abigail, a born leader, now assisted Walter with the ranch's accounts, her knack for numbers shining through as she meticulously recorded feed amounts and animal counts. Charlotte, once paralyzed by fear, now shared an extraordinary bond with horses, earning the haunting title of the little horse whisperer among the ranch hands. Grace, once silent and a source of concern for Jackson, now enchanted visitors with vivid tales crafted for the children, drawn to the restorative magic of rural life. Jackson stood on the porch, heart racing as his daughters, his little girls, sprinted toward the house for lunch. At 48, the lines around his eyes spoke of joy, shaped by laughter, not solitude. The empire flourished, yet it transformed into a tool, a lifeline to safeguard his family's tomorrow and guide lost children back home. That evening, as he tucked the girls into their separate beds, Jackson lingered in Grace's doorway, memories of storms and shared comfort flooding back. While her sisters drifted into slumber, she remained wide awake, pouring her soul onto the pages of her sketchbook under the soft glow of the lamp. "What are you creating, my love?" He leaned in, eyes locked on hers. Grace lifted the page, unveiling a vivid tableau of 5 figures: Jackson, the 3 girls, and Ranger, intertwined beneath a blazing sun. Above them, in bold block letters, she had inscribed the word home. "It's us," she said, her voice now strong, no longer the whisper it had been when they first met. "Tomorrow I'll reveal it to the new kids, so they see they can find a place to belong." Jackson's heart swelled with a love so deep, it threatened to consume him. 3 little girls, once left behind on a dusty road, discovered healing and transformed into healers themselves. As Grace yawned and nestled under her covers, Jackson leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Sleep tight, my fearless warrior." "Night, Daddy," she whispered, her eyelids fluttering shut. In the stillness of the hallway, Jackson lingered, soaking in the soft breaths from 3 bedrooms, Ranger's satisfied sigh nearby, and the faint murmur of the Nebraska wind over ancestral land. Here, family thrived not by blood, but through unbreakable ties of love, courage, and the choice to belong. He realized, in that moment, that his greatest blessings often came in the most surprising forms. 3 small figures on a dusty road, guiding him home when he hadn't even known he was lost.